Tonight, the 15-year-old schoolboy attacked out of the blue by a complete stranger.
Oi, boy, come over here.
No!
He suffered 90% brain damage and will never recover.
Knowing how lively he was, it seems absolutely desperately sad. Every parent expects their child to be pushing them around in their wheelchair.
So, who did it? Hello and welcome to Crimewatch. We're going to bring you the appalling case of 15-year-old Mo Borner in just a moment. But first, a quick look at our other appeals. Could tonight be the night the callous murderer of a police detective 20 years ago is finally caught? Jim Morrison was stabbed after chasing a thief through London's busy Covent Garden just before Christmas back in 1991.
It feels awful that somebody is still out there that has committed a murder and is walking around having a life.
And Rav is here with the new batch of wanted faces in CCTV.
Yeah, we've got people wanted for murder, fraud and drug dealing, and some unbelievable CCTV, including this new footage of the summer rioting in London, showing terrified staff at a money exchange literally fleeing from a mob of looters.
Police in Essex need your help to catch whoever has been throwing rocks from road bridges, causing serious injuries to motorists. And Matthew will have the latest news on cases solved, thanks to your calls.
Yes, including this man from our last show who, having robbed a string of bookies, was spotted by a viewer and has already been sentenced to 6.5 years in prison.
And I bet there are lots of people who'd love to see something like this waiting for them on their Christmas morning. But can you help to track down the thieves who've stolen £30,000 worth of similar model railway from a museum? We start tonight with the completely unprovoked but devastating attack on 15-year-old schoolboy Mo Borner. It happened in Bexhill in East Sussex. And it happened on the Halloween weekend in October as Mo made his way home from a beach party. After 6 weeks in a coma, he is now in a stable condition in hospital but has lost 90% of his brain function. He'll never be the same again.
Mohammed is really, really lovely boy, kind, such a beautiful young man, looking forward to life.
He's a very well-known, popular lad. He's not wishes any harm on anybody ever in his life. He's peace-loving, likes to go out and enjoy himself. We'd go off on his BMX and he'd do some crazy stunt. I'd have a heart in my mouth that he could do these things, but he would just be up there, so fearless. To then see him laying there, being kept alive, and knowing how lively he was, it seems absolutely desperately sad.
"15-year-old Mo Borner's life has changed forever, following a violent and completely unprovoked attack. I now urgently need to trace the man who, with a single punch, has taken away Mo's future and left his family feeling utterly devastated."
The last week I was with Mo was half-term, and he was down from London for that week, staying with me here on the farm.
How's it going?
He was helping me take a fence down, and he was working really hard, and he was using all the tools as I'd shown him.
So, Dad, how much are we getting paid for this? I was thinking, what, 35?
He was a boy, but he was coming into being a young man, and I had a glimpse of what he was going to be like for his future life. He was really looking forward to going to the beach party with his friends. The last thing, he gave me a big thumbs up, saying, "Dad, I love you. I'm going to give you a ring later tonight when we're through with the party, and then you can come and pick me up."
Been friends with Mo for about 3-4 years now. Ever since I met him, he's always been there, and I've always been there for him. It's a two-way friendship. There's a very lively atmosphere, and me, Mo, and about 10 other people rapping around the fire. It was starting to get a bit late, so I said I better go home.
You guys going? Oh, okay, mate.
Said, "See you later, Mo. Get home safe and that." He was like, "Yeah, I will."
My dad will pick me up in a bit.
So I assumed Mo was going to get home all right, and left.
At about midnight, Mo and a group of his friends decided to go back towards the town centre, where Mo was planning on calling his father to pick him up.
Yeah, the party was fun, though. I had a good time.
Oi, boy! Come over here.
I was going to see what he wants.
You got a problem? Tell me you got a problem.
No, mate, all right. Sort this out. Just calm down, yeah?
All right, calm down. Someone needs to teach you a lesson.
No!
With that one punch, Mo was knocked backwards, hitting his head on the car and then the pavement, and left with severe head injuries. The attacker then ran off towards the centre of Bexhill and may well have spent the rest of the evening in local bars. I'm convinced he would have told others about what he'd just done. And it's those people I need to come forward tonight.
It went past midnight and I thought, well, maybe he's with a friend and he'll give me a ring soon. The next thing I know was any parent's worst nightmare. Straight into the A&E, and there he was. Recognisable, but only just, because he got so many pipes and tubes. Full life support. He was in such a serious condition.
Many people don't realise that a single punch can have devastating consequences. We've done a very detailed brain scan on Mo, and the brain is still very swollen. Areas of the brain that are whiter than the rest are deeply injured brain cells that will go on to die.
Mo is being fed through a tube and has not shown any purposeful movement.
The Mo that his family knew before will never come back.
Every parent expects their child to be pushing them around in their wheelchair. But I think with him, we've just got to be strong for him.
Any mother watching this will understand what I mean to be a mother and, you know, your child going through that. I wish that happened to me, not Mohammed.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? DCI Nick Sloan from Surrey and Sussex Major Crime Team is leading the investigation. This was a fine, decent young boy about to start sitting his GCSEs. Nick, devastating for the family, obviously. Let's go to the facts. What do we know about the attacker? What do we think about where he went after the attack?
Mo was attacked by a stranger in his early to mid-20s. Having punched Mo, he then ran off into the town centre and down Brassey Road, and I believe that it's there that he spent the rest of the evening in bars and clubs, and he may well have then confided in someone about what it was he'd just done. Now, it might be that those people don't realise just how serious, just how life-shattering that assault was. And if they were spoken to that night, if they heard something, I need them to come forward and tell me the truth.
Right, those are the people you need to speak to. Those people who are watching tonight might think, well, if this bloke is capable of that, I'm worried about my own safety. What can you say to reassure them?
We can offer people reassurance, we can offer anonymity. We deal with witnesses in the most professional way, and they can have confidence and they can come forward and talk to us.
OK, Nick, thanks very much indeed. Of course, that appeal to come forward also goes to the person who threw the punch. You may not have intended to cause such a serious injury. And if you think you can help whoever you are, I would urge you please to call now. You saw what happened, 0500 600 600. Or you could call Crime Stoppers and do that anonymously. Here's their number, 0800 555 111. Now, Rav has his first batch of wanted faces.
And we start tonight with this guy. This is Mohammed Tariq, and he's wanted in connection with the murder of a man after a suspected road rage incident in Derby in August. The 26-year-old, who has links to Blackpool, also uses the name Tariq Rafiq. Number 2 is this fella. This is Gavin Patrick Carabini, and police want to speak to him about a burglary at the home of an 84-year-old widow, during which jewellery worth more than £12,000 was taken. Carabini, who uses the alias Robert Murray, has links to Dublin, Llanelli, Liverpool and Carlisle. He's considered to be dangerous, so if you see him or know where he is, just call the police immediately. Number 3 is this guy. This is Nisar Dad, who's wanted for attacking his ex-partner with an iron bar and breaking her elbow, and for driving a car at her and her daughter. The 40-year-old has links to London, Leeds and Birmingham. And 4th is Robert Taylor Barefoot, and this rather grand-sounding gentleman is a convicted fraudster who conned people out of almost £250,000, which he then used to fund his lavish lifestyle. The 33-year-old, who has a tribal tattoo on his left arm, which you can see in this picture here, has links to Shropshire, Surrey, London, Australia and Malia in Spain. Now, all of tonight's faces are on the website, which is bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch. And if you know where they are, it's 0500 600 600, or you can text us 63399, type crime, space, and then your message.
This week marks the 20th anniversary of the brutal murder of a police officer in London's Covent Garden. Detective Constable Jim Morrison was off duty when he tried to stop a bag thief, and it seems his sense of duty may have ultimately cost him his life.
Stop!
One thing that he wouldn't ever do would be to turn a blind eye and walk away, because that just wasn't in his character to do that.
Christmas in Covent Garden in London's glittering West End can be a magical time. But it was here, 2 decades ago, that a promising young police officer thought nothing about his own safety when, off duty, he chased a thief through these streets. Tragically, his heroic actions were to cost him his life.
The murder of Detective Constable Jim Morrison on December the 13th, 1991, was headline news at the time.
Police are calling for witnesses to the murder of an off-duty...
But despite the efforts of police, his killer has never been caught. His family and colleagues mourn the death of a popular and well-liked man.
I was about 19 when we first met. We met in a bar, we hit it off, and romance and relationship blossomed from there. We had made plans for our future. We had made plans about starting a family in a few years' time at that point.
Well, I came down from Scotland to join the police. Jim had actually joined before me, about 6 months in front of me. Yeah, and we just bonded straight away. It was a really good friendship, and it kind of almost like a brother type setup, I would imagine.
Hiya.
Hi. Christmas 1991, we'd been married just over 3 years. We were making plans to go up to spend Christmas with his family, which was the first Christmas that we were both able to get the time from work to go up. So we were quite looking forward to going away for a week or two. The morning of the 13th was like any other morning.
There you go, sleepyhead.
Oh, thank you. We both got ready, we had breakfast, we both went to work.
Thanks, you too.
A member of the Metropolitan Police since 1983, Jim had moved quickly from being a uniformed beat officer in Covent Garden to his first role as a detective.
He was incredibly passionate about the job. He really believed completely in what he was doing.
He called me from work to say that he was going to go for a drink after work, and he would be in around the same time as me.
Jim was one of many people in Covent Garden's pubs that night, enjoying the festive season.
Pint of the usual, please.
But while the majority were simply having a good time, others were looking to take advantage of the relaxed atmosphere. a group of thieves was targeting pub-goers. Jim was experienced at spotting this type of criminal, and it's thought he came across one of these thieves on his way home.
What you got there, sir? I'm a police officer. You come in with me. Okay, stop.
At the Transport Museum in Covent Garden, Jim was spotted struggling with the bag snatcher.
Put that knife away. Stop, police! Put the knife down. On the what?
He chased him towards the Aldwych.
Put the knife down. Put the knife down. I warned you.
It felt as if we'd been in the hospital for a long time before a doctor came in and informed me of what had happened, and it was fatal.
Police launched a major investigation. To help reach as many people as possible, they also turned to Crimewatch. Taking calls that night were Jim's friends and colleagues, including Detective Inspector Dave Willis.
The night of the appeal, that must have been a difficult evening for you.
Yeah, we investigate serious and major crime on a daily basis. When your friend, and Jim was a good friend of mine, is stabbed in those circumstances, it was a horrific thing to be investigating.
But you did get good information that night, didn't you?
We did, yes. Thanks to a Crimewatch viewer in 1992, we established the woman who'd had her handbag stolen from the Maple Leaf. This was a very useful bit of information which took the inquiry forward. But even now, 20 years on, we're desperate for more information that will help us catch Jim's killer.
It feels awful that somebody is still out there that has committed a murder and is walking around having a life.
It's now 20 years since Detective Constable Jim Morrison was killed here, where his memorial now stands. But his killer is still at large. For the sake of his widow and his family, if you know who did this, it's time to finally come forward.
Yeah, I really miss his friendship and him being there. Yeah, big hole in our life.
Whenever somebody dies or is killed tragically like that, any time of year is going to be horrendous, but at Christmas it just felt, for me, very hard because it was Christmas, you know, and I used to walk through Covent Garden and see the Christmas trees, and life goes on for everybody else, but you don't really want it to.
Well, we're joined now by Detective Chief Inspector Amanda Hargreaves. Given when this happened, around about Christmas time, this must be a particularly difficult time of year for Jim's family.
Devastating, totally devastating, compounded by the fact it was just before his birthday, just before Christmas, truly devastating for everyone.
Amanda, can you talk us through what happened where on the night?
Yeah, Jim tried to arrest the suspect outside the London Transport Museum. The suspect ran off towards the Aldwych. Jim gave chase. The chase ended up in Montreal Place, where Jim was fatally stabbed.
Now, of course, we have to bear in mind that this all happened 20 years ago. Is it useful, though, to give a description of the suspect?
Yeah, there were plenty of people around that night, and witnesses described the suspect as being between 27 and 30 years of age, male, of North African, Algerian appearance, about 5'10", short dark hair with particularly distinctive curls at the front, wearing a leather jacket.
Now, it's interesting that you and your team have been approached recently by potentially important witnesses here.
Yeah, 2 callers have phoned into the incident room. They've left their numbers, but when we've tried to call back, we've had no answer. We'd particularly like them to come forward tonight and phone us again.
OK. There is a reward, a substantial reward, it's worth saying, being offered.
£20,000 for information leading to the arrest and prosecution.
OK. Well, we wish you and your team all the best for tonight.
Thank you.
We saw there, it's been 20 long years of waiting for Jim's widow. If you know anything, tonight is the time to finally come forward. Call us now, 0500 600 600. Now, Rav has got some CCTV for you to take a look at.
And we start in Nottingham. Check out this guy in the sunglasses as he waits in line at a Lloyds TSB bank on a Monday morning in July. He approaches the counter and hands the cashier a note demanding money and saying that he's got a gun. Nonchalantly, he waits for his haul before casually strolling off. 12 weeks later, and he's at another branch of Lloyds in the city. He's still sporting his shades, and the routine's the same. He approaches the counter, gets out his shopping bags, and then hands over the note, which again demands cash and threatens he has a gun. There's a 25-grand reward for information leading to his conviction. So can you name this shady character tonight? A man and a woman enjoy a pizza as they wait for a late-night train at Hackney Central Overground Station on a Friday night in August. As they sit chatting, a man in shorts and a t-shirt wheeling a mountain bike makes his way towards the platform. Then, without provocation, the cyclist knocks the pizza box onto the floor before attacking the man, knocking him down twice and even hitting him with his bike. The attacker then leaves the way he came. The victim suffered a head wound and had to be taken to hospital. Tell us, who is this violent thug? This is a footpath in the town of Berkhamsted in Hertfordshire in September. A woman has just walked past when a man attracts her attention, exposing himself as he does. And this isn't the first time he's done it. He's been at it since March. If he wanted exposure, he's certainly got it now. Name, please. That footage is all on the website, and if you know who any of them are, then call 0500 600 600 or text 63399.
OK, a quick appeal for information now on a case you may have seen in the news. Police are investigating 2 incidents where pieces of rock or concrete have been dropped from bridges onto cars on the A12 in Essex. Both happened during the evening of Thursday, December the 1st. Now, during the first incident, it happened around about 9:30 p.m. near the Friarning Bridge. This big rock was dropped onto a Vauxhall Astra where a mum and daughter were driving along. The car was badly damaged, but amazingly, neither woman was actually hurt.
It was just as if somebody had put their hands over my eyes, then I just heard a bang and my windscreen just shattered. Maybe if I was travelling that 1 mile an hour more, then it could have come straight through the windscreen and it could have ended in a different way.
They could have killed 4 people within half an hour and just go home and sleep, and I don't understand how people could do that.
They're obviously not normal people to do something like that. I'm scared that it's going to happen again to somebody else, and I want them to be caught, really.
Well, as if that wasn't bad enough, around about half an hour after that, a couple were driving under the West Hangingfield Road Bridge towards Brentwood when their Nissan Note was hit by this large piece of concrete. The block crushed the female passenger, 57-year-old Carol Manley, causing her serious head and chest injuries. Very reckless crimes are being treated as attempted murder. Officers are appealing for anyone who's got information to contact Essex Police. I'll give you their number, 020 7158 0198. OK, it's time for some updates on some previous cases.
And we start with news on an appeal from our last programme. We asked for information about the death of Rico Gordon, who was shot after he was caught in the crossfire of a gunfight in the eastern area of Bristol in July. 2 men from London, one aged 30 and one aged 26, have since been arrested and charged in connection with Rico's murder. Officers have also identified 2 of the 3 witnesses they were seeking, but they would still like to hear from anyone else who was in Stapleton Road on the night of the shooting who hasn't yet come forward, or for anyone else who can help. If you can, contact Avon and Somerset Constabulary via Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111.
Now, in September, we appealed for information about the theft of this rare rhino head from the Hazelmere Museum in Surrey. Well, as a direct result of calls to the show, a 32-year-old man from Tilbury in Essex has been charged with the theft and is due to appear in court in the new year.
finally, an excellent result on a case we featured in May. A young woman was raped as she made her way home after a meal out in Brighton on Valentine's Day this year. We showed you this CCTV footage of her attacker just moments before he subjected her to the terrifying ordeal. Watching the programme that night was an officer from a neighbouring force who recognised similarities to a case that he was investigating. The shared intelligence led detectives to 27-year-old Michael Tejowski from Maidstone, and last week he was found guilty of raping 2 women and sexually assaulting a third. Sentencing him to 18 years in prison, the judge described him as a thoroughly dangerous man who had shown not a shred of remorse or human compassion towards his victims.
Right, still to come tonight. Why was 37-year-old Errol Mackenzie shot dead in an East London park in an apparently random shooting?
I just got in from church and the telephone rang, and my eldest daughter said to me, Mom, Errol died. Errol is dead.
And can you identify the gang behind a shockingly violent robbery at the home of an elderly couple near Leicester?
I was watching the one with the machete, which was a bit frightening, when I was hit in the face with a crowbar.
And police in Glasgow need to know who these men are. They are both wanted for serious sexual assaults on the same woman. We'll have the inside story of how... Sorry about that. We'll also have the inside story on how detectives caught the killer of Birmingham taxi driver Mohammed Arshed. They brought the case to Crimewatch after a sharp-eyed detective spotted a new piece of CCTV.
And that's when we had a real breakthrough.
But first, Matthew has the latest on what's been happening on the phones so far.
It is very busy here on the floor tonight. Let's talk to Nick, who's investigating that devastating attack on the 15-year-old boy in Sussex. I know just in the last few seconds as we were standing chatting that you've had some really exciting information come in.
Yeah, the calls, the texts, the emails are into double figures now, and the same person has been named on more than one occasion. But there's someone who's phoned through. They clearly know a lot about what happened. They don't want to leave their name. But I really need them to phone back and tell me what they know. One day, you know, these people could be parents. They've got to step forward and do the right thing now, because they won't get an opportunity to turn the clock back.
All right, Nick, thanks very much. If it was you that made that call, please call back. Rav.
More faces now. Number 5 is this fella here. This is Rayhan Suleiman. He's wanted in connection with the large-scale supply of heroin and crack cocaine, as well as firearms offences. Suleiman's 27, has connections to Bradford and is known to use the alias Mohammed Barber. Number 6 is this guy here. Now, this is Stephen John Farey. He's wanted after a hit and run, which happened last Friday night in Southborough near Tunbridge Wells, during which a police officer was seriously injured. The 29-year-old has links to Beckenham and Norfolk. Now, the image is from 2008 here, but this one is what is taken from CCTV and is what he may look like now, so have a look at that. Next is this guy here. Now, this is Stephen, if my machine works. This is Stephen James Waller, also known as Mr. Koch or Mr. Horst. He was Peter James Waller. He's due to stand trial for conspiracy to steal antiques and jewellery worth more than £130,000, but didn't turn up to court. He has connections to Surrey, Kent, Wiltshire, Germany, and has various tattoos, including ones on his thumbs saying mum and dad and the word love across his right knuckles. And number 8, this is Soda Alam, and he's 33 years old. Police need to trace him in connection with the rape of a woman in Newport in South Wales in January. He failed to turn up at court in August and has been wanted ever since. Alam, who may well be working as a chef, also has links to Cornwall. Numbers 08 is 0500 600 600 if you recognise any of them, or text 63399. Type crime, space, and then your message. And remember, they will all stay online until they're caught.
Next, the couple whose Leicestershire farmhouse was raided by a violent gang in September. As well as cash, the raiders made off with a collection of rare and valuable shotguns and rifles. Not only are they worth a lot of money, they could be deadly in the wrong hands.
Because we love the countryside and what it contains. Different wildlife, bird life, all sorts of wonderful things.
We're down a long farm drive, about a quarter of a mile long. Our immediate neighbours are halfway down the farm drive, and we've been here about 31 years now.
Shooting and hunting and fishing, it's part of the rural thing, you know, and it's how we've been brought up.
This is the home of Sandra and David Clark in Countersthorpe, a small village a few miles south of Leicester. A masked gang put the couple through a terrifying ordeal for almost an hour. They were tied up and David was savagely beaten with a machete and an iron bar.
That was just a very normal day about the farm and about the yard, just normal.
Looking out, turning out, feeding, and then I cooked dinner in the evening.
I was watching a programme on the television. Sandra was in the other room watching a different programme. And I just switched over to News at 10 when it all happened. I was watching the one with the machete, which was a bit frightening. When I was hit in the face with a crowbar. Knocked my teeth out, and that was the end of me then. And then I went down then in a hail of blows from a cricket bat and the machete. They took my watch and my wallet and the keys to the gun cabinet.
I did hear a noise, and the next thing I knew, there was a man standing alongside me with a crowbar in his hand. And he just grabbed me and pulled me out of my chair. They were still knocking David about. And I remember shouting to them to leave him alone, because I said, he'll have a heart attack, he's not well. And I said that at least 2 or 3 times, which they didn't take any notice of me. And that was the start of my ordeal with them.
Where is the money? We haven't got it! Don't lie to me! Where is it?
And then he got a screwdriver that he poked in my cheek.
I need to know.
And then he put it in my mouth, threatening me. And then he threatened me with the machete.
Where's the money?
They wouldn't believe me that we hadn't got a safe.
Get up, get up!
They'd trashed the office, there was rubbish everywhere. They'd crowbarred the door, but they used the keys to open the gun safe. Several of them were Purdy shotguns, which are the very best money can buy, and they're works of art. They certainly are my pride and joy, and to see them being handled so roughly, you know, it horrified me.
I've loaded the gun.
He threatened to blow her head off with one of my guns if I didn't tell him where the safe was.
We haven't got a safe. Tell me where it is!
They just said, oh, you're lying to us. Where is the money?
No, please.
They just wouldn't believe us that there wasn't any. They just wouldn't believe us.
We were both taken back into the front room. They tied our legs, and then they tied my legs then to the coffee table.
We assumed they were loading up the vehicles with the guns. One of them went round and drew all the curtains, and he went.
They're gone.
Hello, police. Yeah, we've been robbed. It's stolen our cars and a lot of guns.
Things are things. They can rob you, but to do what they did to us just was unnecessary, really. It's never worried me being here on my own. Even at night on my own, it's never worried me. But I think it will do now.
It horrified me to think that some of the guns they took could be threatening some poor shopkeeper or something like that. You know, we were lucky that we weren't really badly hurt. We were sort of bad enough, but the next time they do it, it could well escalate into somebody being killed.
Isn't that terrible? Well, Detective Constable Tim Smith is with me now. It's worth pointing out to people, Tim, that the Clarks have completely revised their security arrangements. You do think it was a targeted attack. You don't, however, think that these thieves were going for the guns, but that's what they got. Just take me through the guns that they stole.
Yes, the most prominent one is a gun like this. It's a Purdy gun. It's worth about £70,000 in a pair. There's several others stolen, which can be seen on the Crimewatch website.
OK, in total value, around about £150,000. The cars were stolen. As we heard Mr Clark say, they're on the phone to the police. 2 cars. What can you tell us about them?
Yes, they had personalised number plates. We believe that these were taken off shortly after the robbery.
OK.
But we're hoping that somebody saw them beforehand.
OK, one was a Range Rover and the other one was a Defender. As you say, more detailed descriptions are on our website for now. Thanks very much. We should also say a reward of £5,000 in this case, leading to an arrest and conviction. Quite an ordeal for that couple. It is really important that those guns are found. Do call the detectives here now on 0500 600 600. Next, the shocking story of a father fatally gunned down in Leighton in East London. 37-year-old Errol Mackenzie's body was found in a park. He'd been shot 3 times. Well, Detective Chief Inspector Mark Gower joins me now. Evening, Mark. What more can you tell us about this?
It was on the 11th of April 2010. Shortly after midnight, the body of Errol Mackenzie was found by a passerby in the playing fields just off Seymour Road in Leighton. He'd been shot 3 times in the legs and chest. And we've no idea if or why Errol was targeted. It seems like a complete random shooting.
Given that it was a random shooting, understandably his family, of course, are entirely shocked by this. Let's hear from Errol's mother.
I just got in from church and the telephone rang. And my eldest daughter said to me, Mom, Errol died. Errol is dead. I said, what? She said, yes, Mom, I can't believe it myself, but Errol is dead. It won't cure the sadness in my heart as long as I live, but we would like the person or persons who have done it to be brought to justice.
So tell us what you know about Errol's last movements on that day.
We know he went to Tottenham that evening. We've not been able to establish how he got back to Leighton, where he was last seen on CCTV in a shop buying alcohol on the Lee Bridge Road. On leaving the shop, he turned right. This wouldn't have been a natural direction home, and it's a mystery why he took a detour through the playing fields.
Tell me about the gun, would you?
The gun is a bical type weapon.
Yeah.
It uses 9mm short ammunition. It may be similar to this one. Right. We know the gun has since been used in the North London area, and we need to get it off the streets.
Yeah, we do. You've got CCTV of potential witnesses. Talk us through this, if you would.
We do. We know Errol was in the park by this stage, and the footage shows a small hatchback car driving into the park via Marsh Lane. Also, 2 cyclists cycling into the park, also by a Marsh Lane, shortly before midnight. We'd like to trace all of these people as witnesses. OK, leading to a conviction in this case, we should remind people there is a reward of £20,000 for now. Thanks very much. I wonder, can you identify anyone in the CCTV you've just seen, or can you help in any way? Our usual number, 0500 600 600, or you could call Crime Stoppers. You do that anonymously, 0800 555 111. Now it's time for more CCTV with Rav.
Yep, several police forces are still hard at work examining the hundreds of thousands of hours of CCTV footage from the summer riots. And tonight, the Met need your help to identify people caught on camera in London on the 8th of August. This is inside the party store in Lavender Hill in Battersea. 2 men are inside the shop, which had been broken into earlier in the day. One man sets light to a rail of clothes, and the fire quickly spreads. The shop and the flats above it were destroyed in the blaze. Can you name the man responsible? High Street North in East Ham this time, and a tiny newsagent's kiosk is the focus of the looters' attention. They grab handfuls of cigarettes and chocolate, the shopkeeper desperately giving them what they want in an attempt to make them leave. Suddenly, a man appears wielding a large crowbar, which sparks a second round of looting. Shocking stuff. Who are they? A little later, and further up High Street North, and the gang's attention turns to a money transfer office. They rush up the stairs, one of them taking out the security camera with a large wrench as he does so. The terrified staff can see them coming and make a run for it before the gang use hammers and wrenches to break in. They make off with thousands of pounds in British and foreign currency. Names, please. It's later on that evening, and this is a cash machine outside the Asda supermarket in Beckton in East London. Check out the bright sparks using an angle grinder to try and break into the cash machine's vault. They attack the hinges with little success. Then they try the middle of the door, with the same result. Well, as luck would have it, some of their mates turn up in a flashy black Mercedes. The car, which police believe was stolen, is then used as a battering ram, completely destroying the wall. But despite their best efforts, they still couldn't get to the cash. Name these reckless ram raiders tonight. Remember, all the footage stays online until they're caught. If you recognise anyone, you know what to do. 0500 600 600 or text on 63399.
Now, in the early hours of Sunday, the 30th of January, a night out in Glasgow city centre came to an horrific end for a young woman. She was subjected to a violent sexual assault by not just one, but two different men.
I remember them being quite forceful towards me, pushing me forcefully up against the corner of the doorway and then pushing me down onto the ground. Where they then pinned me down by kneeling on my ankles and holding onto my wrists. I remember screaming for my friends because I thought they would have been back out to come and get me, but they never heard me.
Well, I'm joined now by Detective Sergeant Duncan Cameron. Duncan, I should tell people that what we're about to talk about and what we're about to see is really, I think, very distressing indeed. Can you tell me, first of all, just describe a little bit more of what happened to this young woman?
Yeah, the victim had been out with friends in a local nightclub in Glasgow. She'd had a few drinks and had fallen asleep within the club. This led to staff putting her out the back door from where she'd walked to the main street, which is Buchanan Street. And from there she's been targeted by a male who's dragged her into the alleyway and sexually assaulted her.
OK, we've got some CCTV. As I say, people may find this CCTV pretty distressing, but we feel we have to show it so as people understand how horrific this attack was. Let's take a look at it now and tell us what we're seeing.
Here you can see this guy is practically carrying our victim into the lane. He then drags her into a nearby doorway where he forces her in there and subjects her to a substantial and sustained sexual assault. OK, Duncan,
we've got another piece of CCTV, almost beyond belief. Let's run it now and you tell people what it is we're seeing here.
Right, 5 minutes after the first attacker leaves, this second guy comes into the same lane. Our victim's on the floor, he can't see her from the street. Initially it looks as if he's there to help her, but he doesn't. He picks her up, throws her into the same doorway and sexually assaults her. It would certainly appear from that footage there that there's been some sort of contact between our first attacker and our second attacker.
It is extraordinary. There is an important, could be a very important witness, again also on CCTV. Yeah. Tell us what we're seeing.
What we're seeing here is during the first attack, this female comes into the lane. She walks about halfway down. She then turns on her heels and walks straight back out again. Whether she's seen something or heard something, we don't know. But if she's watching tonight, we want her to get in touch with the programme, or if anybody indeed recognises her, you can see she's wearing a very distinctive short jerkin jacket with a furry hood.
OK, Duncan, thank you very much for that. If you are that woman, potentially a very important witness, or you think you can help, you saw how appalling that was, I would urge you please to call now. The number is 0500 600 600, and indeed if you've been a victim of crime, then you can always call the victim support line. They're on 0845 30 30 900. Now, 2 years ago, Crimewatch appealed for your help to find the killer of Mohammed Arshad, a married father of 3 who worked as a taxi driver in Birmingham. He'd been stabbed 6 times in the head and he was dumped in a country lane. Matthew takes up the story of how the murderer's own diary would ultimately help secure his conviction.
I know I deserve to be caught, but instincts are telling me to run. I've been on the edge of breaking. I look back and it's all like a dream.
Mohammed Arshad was a taxi driver working for A-Cars in the West Midlands police area. He was married with 3 small children, all of them under the age of 10. He was expecting his 4th child at the time of his murder.
But when Arshad picked up a passenger on July the 22nd, 2009, it would be for the last time.
Arshad was stabbed in his taxi. He was stabbed from behind. It was a particularly frenzied attack. And having been stabbed, he was pulled from the taxi and left for dead at the side of the road.
A passing motorist arrived as Arshad's killer was leaving the scene.
Come on, mate.
Suspicious, the driver investigated and discovered Arshad's body lying in the ditch.
Arshad had received in excess of 15 stab wounds. 6 of those stab wounds were to his head, and 1 of them had penetrated his brain. Such force was used that the knife actually broke.
Police found the taxi dumped later that night.
Early evidence was available in the form of 2 palm prints on the rear offside window and door of the taxi. Now, those palm prints were quite significant in that they were blood-stained.
With an attack of this nature, it seemed likely the killer would have a record of violence, but a search of the national database found no matches.
We realised then that this wasn't going to be an easy case, and it was going to be a very detailed, very painstaking investigation.
£187 had been left in Arshad's taxi, but if this wasn't a robbery, what was the motive?
We honestly had no idea what the motive for this attack was.
CCTV showed Arshad's final passenger, the police's main suspect, making his way to the taxi pickup point.
It was very grainy. The images were of such poor quality, I wasn't even prepared to give a physical description.
With no motive, no match for the palm prints, and the poor CCTV images, police needed a new approach. Could geography be the key to catching this killer? The phone box where the taxi had been booked, the passenger's pickup point, and the street where the car was dumped all lay within a specific area of South Birmingham.
We really felt with all those locations that the answer laid in that area, and this was very much a local attacker.
Police mapped out a zone where they felt Arshad's murderer was likely to live.
And that's when we embarked upon a mass screen in the area, taking fingerprints, DNA and photographs of all males from between 15 and 45 years old.
But there were 3,000 households within that area and at least 700 men fitting the murderer's profile.
We knew the mass screen was going to take months, but we just couldn't sit back and do nothing else.
So the CCTV trawl also continued.
We're now getting to the stage where we're viewing that CCTV, which is further away from the scenes. It's further away from those critical areas that we're looking at. And that's when we had a real breakthrough.
A sharp-eyed detective spotted a man on a local bus on the day of the attack and recognised him from the CCTV of Arshad's final passenger. Suddenly, the pressure was on.
And I thought, well, if this is the person, we need to get these images on Crimewatch as soon as we can.
The tapes were couriered to a professional imaging company who would compare the CCTV of the man on the bus with the images of the suspect.
As soon as we got that confirmation from the forensic imaging company that it was the same person, the courier that had delivered it was ordered direct to the Crimewatch studio.
Like that shocking murder.
And the new, clearer CCTV sparked a response. The day after the programme, 2 separate people rang in to say they knew the man on the bus and named him as Andrew Bayliss. And alarm bells started ringing when both callers told police that Bayliss had shaved his head and grown a beard, so he no longer looked like the CCTV pictures.
And to add to our suspicions, Andrew Bayliss actually lived right in the area where we were doing the mass screening.
Police also discovered Bayliss's name had been logged on the police system the previous month after his belongings were found apparently abandoned in mid-Wales. As a result, police had visited Bayliss's home and were told he'd gone to Wales to clear his head and that he was having emotional problems.
And that in itself, coupled with the change of appearance, this guy is very fast becoming a serious suspect in this case.
Their suspicions were right. 29-year-old Bayliss had debts of around £20,000. He may have planned the attack as a robbery, but events had taken a much more violent turn. Tortured by what he'd done, Bayliss had fled to Wales and wrote an agonised diary, pouring out his guilty thoughts.
It's all like a dream. I need to remind myself that it was me. I'm in so much trouble. I feel sick with guilt knowing the end. I've been on the edge of breaking, fueled by fear, paranoid, just watching the police get closer.
Bayliss had since returned home to the West Midlands, which is where police made their arrest.
Mr. Bayliss.
And his palm prints were an exact match for those found on Arshad's taxi. Police had also found Bayliss's journal when they arrested him.
I just could not sit at home and wait to be caught. I have such paranoia from this. Every siren I hear, and I could just die on the spot.
The diary was a vital factor in convincing the jury of Bayliss's guilt, and he was sentenced to a minimum of 30 years in prison.
This was a brutal, unprovoked murder. Arshad had a very young family. He was hard-working, and he did nothing to deserve this attack. We still don't know today what the true motive was, but whatever happened on that day, he didn't take any money. It was a life taken for nothing.
Actually, Matthew, that sums it up, a life taken for nothing.
It was senseless, random and incredibly savage. Bayliss was drowning in debts, addicted to gambling, drugs, alcohol, and he just picked out a really soft target, a taxi driver, and that was Arshad.
The critical aspect, I suppose, of this investigation was, I remember running it on the night, the CCTV.
It was brilliant. They spent 4 months going through hundreds of hours of CCTV. And remember, at that stage, all they had was that one grainy image from outside of the school. Now, I was talking to the detective who made the breakthrough, and he said he'd seen that image so many times, it was imprinted on his brain. Just the body shape of this man, the profile, his hairline, how he moved. And when he saw that man on the bus, instantly he said, that's him. There was something about the hair, something that caught his eye. Even his colleagues weren't so sure, but actually he was right.
Remarkable. And in the end, another crucial piece of evidence was the diary.
Yes, and he started by writing in the diary. I don't know what this is exactly. Maybe an explanation, maybe a confession. He talked about swimming in guilt. He said, I've wasted my life and destroyed others. But when it got to court, he still pleaded not guilty. He said that he'd met a friend. It was the friend who'd murdered Arshad. But there was no evidence of anyone else. There was only one killer. It was Bayliss.
Thanks, Matthew. OK, it's time for some more news on previous cases.
And firstly, an update on a couple of wanted faces. Kamar Campbell featured last year for the suspected murder of Abdi Risak Mahmood in Bristol in July 2010. Well, last month, 21-year-old Campbell of Easton in Bristol pleaded guilty to Abdi's manslaughter and was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Whereas this guy, Rowan Crooks, made it onto the board in 2009 after deliberately running over a cyclist and dragging him for 40 feet under the car before leaving him for dead in Oxford. Well, last month, 34-year-old Crooks was sentenced to 9.5 years for wounding with intent and was banned for driving for 10 years. Two great results there.
Now, remember this nasty attack we showed you back in February. A man smashed a glass in a fellow drinker's face in a bar at Sheffield train station in April 2010. Well, 38-year-old Jonathan Gibson from Owlthorpe in Sheffield has now been convicted of wounding and sentenced to 30 months in prison.
And last month we showed you this CCTV of Robert Stevens robbing a bookmaker's in Bath in September. A few days after the show, a viewer recognised him at a bookies in Yeovil and the 56-year-old from Bristol was arrested. He's since pleaded guilty to the robbery as well as 3 others and has been sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. Nice one.
Now, in a case we featured 5 years ago, Leslie Cumming was viciously attacked outside his home in Edinburgh, suffering horrendous injuries. After an exhaustive investigation, his attacker was identified as 48-year-old Robert Graham, who'd fled to Australia. He was extradited back to the UK to stand trial and last month was found guilty of the attack. He was sentenced today to 11 years for attempted murder. A great result.
Now, how many of you are secretly wishing for something like this from Santa? Well, sets like these have become more than just toys. They are now an attractive target for thieves. Earlier this year, a small family-run museum in North Wales was raided. 30 grand's worth of model railway was taken, and Sergeant Dave Nichols from North Wales Police is here to tell us more. Just tell us a little bit more about what happened, Dave.
OK. Overnight on Wednesday, the 15th of June, the Conwy Valley Railway Museum in Bessacoed was broken into. The thieves disabled the CCTV cameras and stole £30,000 worth of model railway engines and carriages. It was a well-planned and
pretty well executed.
It's a focused raid, and
there were 180 individual pieces that they stole. We should tell people there are details of a lot of the pieces on the website. You don't think that this is an isolated incident?
No, we believe there was a similar burglary in Kent in May of this year,
right.
And we've been liaising with officers there. We believe that most of the items are heading for foreign markets over in Europe, but we would ask anyone that's been offered similar items or has seen them for sale to contact us tonight.
Dave, thanks very much indeed. It really has hit this little museum hard, so if you can help, do call 0500 600 600. Time now for a last quick update from Rav.
Now, the calls are flying in on the Mo Borner GBH. We've had several callers naming the same person, nearly 35 calls and texts in total, rising all the time. Anonymous callers with lots of information. We need you to call back. Please do call back if you've got information. And very quickly, the aggravated burglary in Leicestershire. We've had a few calls in on this brutal attack on the couple, but we need more information where these distinctive guns are. If you can help, get in touch.
OK, that's all for now. Remember that you can view all of the Reconstructions Wanted Faces CCTV online. Just go to bbc.co.uk/crimewatch. The phone lines, they stay open until midnight tomorrow, and we are here again in just 35 minutes after the news with the very latest on what's been, I think, a really busy night tonight. Bye-bye for now. Thanks for calling.
You are.
Hello and welcome back. I must say there have been some remarkable calls tonight. More of what's come in very soon. But first, let's just remind ourselves of the appalling case of 15-year-old Mo Borner, who's been left severely brain damaged after an unprovoked attack in Bexhill in East Sussex.
Mo is a very well-known, popular lad. He's peace-loving, likes to go out and enjoy himself. He's really looking forward to going to the beach party with his friend.
Yeah, the party was fun though. I had a good time.
Oi, boy! Come over here!
Mo!
To then see him laying there, being kept alive, and knowing how lively he was, it seems absolutely desperately sad.
Desperately sad. Well, DCI Nick Stone from Surrey and Sussex Major Crime Team is here. I gather it's been quite a night so far for you.
Yeah, no, I've had a fantastic night. The combined pieces of information we've had in via email, via text, via phone, are now over 50 pieces of information. And the three themes that are coming out is, the first one is that the same person is being consistently named as the offender.
Right.
Second thing is that potentially new witnesses have come forward to both the assault and to some acts of aggression at the beach party earlier on in the evening, which is great. And the final thing that's coming through is the courage of the people coming forward.
Right.
You know, they're starting to reflect, I think, on mum and dad and the courage and the dignity that they've displayed, and are going to do the right thing and tell the truth.
And as you said, you will treat any witnesses with the utmost security and anonymity. They can be assured of that. We should also remind people that this was just a straightforward, fine, upstanding young boy about to sit his GCSEs who now has 90% brain damage because of the punch.
I can offer the people those reassurance, and Mo's had his future taken away.
OK, let's go to Matthew.
Next, the appeal for new information to track down the murderer of Detective Constable Jim Morrison. He was fatally stabbed 2 decades ago as he tackled a bag thief in London's West End.
Put the knife down. Put the knife down. I warned you.
Whenever somebody dies or is killed tragically like that, any time of year is going to be horrendous, but at Christmas it just felt, for me, very hard because it was Christmas, you know, and life goes on for everybody else, but you don't really want it to.
Well, here again is Detective Chief Inspector Amanda Hargreaves. And Amanda, what's come in?
Yeah, we've had a large amount of calls this evening. Despite this being 20 years ago, some of these calls have been very interesting and will no doubt help the inquiry enormously. One in particular is from a potential witness who has given us information that we're currently working on.
Sounds like a really good lead. Now, I know in recent weeks that you've had calls from the Algerian community. You're desperate for those people to actually phone back, aren't you?
Yes, the Algerian community have helped us a lot. There have been a couple of callers who phoned and left numbers. We've tried to recontact them and there's been no answer, so we'd particularly like them to call back.
Well, after all of this time, Jim and his friends and his family desperate to actually catch the person responsible. Please, if you have information, do call in. Rav.
We get some good stuff coming in on the CCTV. Let's start with the Nottingham double bank robbery. Now, this guy was caught on camera committing 2 bank robberies. We've had a couple of names already suggested by viewers at home for who he could be. Then we showed you a bike assault that happened in Hackney at a station. This guy, seemingly completely unprovoked, attacked a couple of passengers. Well, we've had 2 names again suggested for who he could be. And then we showed you a guy indecently exposing himself in Hertfordshire. We've had some very promising information, I'm told, by the officers. We've had a name and a location for him.
OK, we're joined again by Detective Sergeant Duncan Cameron, who's investigating that unbelievable sexual assault on a young woman in Glasgow by 2 men on the same night. How have the calls gone for you, Duncan?
We've had a number of positive responses from callers tonight. However, there have been a couple who have phoned in, haven't left their details. We'd urge them to phone back and we can guarantee anonymity if the caller's back tonight.
Let's just remind people of the horror of this attack. There was plenty CCTV, which hopefully is going to help the investigation. Just briefly, what are we seeing?
That's correct. It's 2 different males that come into McCormick Lane where separately, in a very short space of time, attack our victim and carry out serious sexual assaults on her.
There is also, importantly, a person who could be a very important witness. This was a woman who was in the lane that evening. Just briefly.
During the first attack, this female comes into the lane, walks about halfway down and then turns on the heels and goes back out again. We'd encourage her to contact us here tonight. OK,
people can get all the details on the website. She's wearing a sort of hooded top. People might want to take a closer look at that with fur on it. Let's go to Matthew.
Well, let's have a look at the latest on the case of 37-year-old Errol Mackenzie. You'll remember he was the man murdered in a park in East London. Mark Gower is looking after this one. I know you've had a lot of really interesting calls.
We've had some really useful stuff coming through, really impressed by it. We've had some information about the car, some potential suspects, and more importantly, a potential motive.
Now, the CCTV you've got is very important. What information on that?
It's vital. There's a particular whale tail on one of the bicycles. It's a mudguard. Somebody's going to know, the users of those bicycles, really encouraged by it. Hopefully somebody will come forward and let us know who they are.
OK, Mark, good luck. Kirsty.
OK, a quick reminder now of the terrifying September raid on a Leicestershire farmhouse in which a haul of rare and expensive shotguns and rifles were taken.
I was watching the one with the machete, which was a bit frightening, when I was hit in the face with a crowbar. It horrified me to think that some of the guns they took could be threatening some poor shopkeeper or something like that.
OK, Detective Constable Tim Smith is with me now. How have the calls been for your team tonight, Tim?
Yes, we've had some good calls, especially regarding the guns.
Let's remind people, yes, of those guns. The pair of Purdy's, how much were they worth?
The pair of Purdy's were about £70,000.
Right, and the haul of all the guns in general?
Was about £150,000.
Right, and quite distinctive, some of them beautiful handmade guns. People would recognise them if they've been offered them. 2 cars were stolen too. The important things about these, it was a Range Rover and a Defender. They did have private plates to begin with.
They had personalised plates, yes. We believe these were taken off shortly after the robbery had taken place, but hopefully somebody has seen them before that happened.
OK, Tim, thanks very much. Rav, quickly, over to you.
There's some good stuff coming in on the faces. Let's look at number 1 here. This is Mohammed Tariq, wanted for that road rage incident which led to the victim tragically losing his life. A few addresses that have been followed up right now by police and following connections to the Midlands where we thought he may be. Number 3 was Nizar Dad, wanted for attacking his ex-partner with an iron bar. Several calls connecting him to a specific area that police are following up. And then number 8, I want to tell you about Soda Alam, wanted for that rape offence in Newport in Wales. 3 very good sounding calls, I'm told by the officers.